Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us for another episode of Military to Mainstream, where we learn invaluable resources from veterans to help military members transitioning out of the military. I'm your host, Ricardo, and today we have the honor of joining us, Joshua Newman. He was also in the Marine Corps. He reached the rank of E7, which is Gunnery Sergeant. He served from August of 2004 to August of 2016, and he held multiple billets. His primary one was a 6173, which was a crew chief on the CH-53 Echo. He was also a weapons tactics instructor, a WTI. Those people are pretty badass. And then he got to be a test evaluator for the CH-53 Kilo program, which is a pretty cool helicopter that came out. And then he also got to help future Marines become combat instructors. Well, he was a combat instructor and helped them at the School of Infantry. And he has 3 combat deployments, 2 to Iraq and 1 to Afghanistan. And Joshua, thanks for joining us, man. How you doing?
I'm good, Ricardo. I appreciate you having me on here.
Yeah, of course, man. It's an honor to have you on. We were speaking before when we were setting this up. I really looked up to you. You really embodied the whole Marine Corps thing. And we'll dig into your military experience right now. But it's an honor for me to have you on here. Thanks for coming on and making the time.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So let's jump into it. So I feel like you're going to give a plethora of knowledge right here. Let's give them a little background on you, right? So what was your military experience like, and what was your primary role? I know you held multiple billets, but what would you consider your primary role in the Marine Corps?
The 6173, 53 Echo crew chief starting out, I did that for 8 years. I was with HMH 466, as you recall, you were there. And I did 3 deployments with them. I got back and they said, hey, we're going to send you to test and evaluation to VMX 22. The Kilo program's getting ready to roll out. We've got some stuff we want to test with them. You're going to be kind of the dummies, and you guys are going to take the new concepts and you're going to incorporate them with the Echo and see how they do with that, and then we'll transition them onto the Kilo program. At the end of that enlistment, I got picked up for a B billet. Combat instructor. I served with Kilo Company for about 8 months at Marine Combat Training Battalion. After that, I did a board for Combat Instructor School. I was lucky enough and I got selected, and I spent the next 3 years, 3 years, as a combat instructor at Combat Instructor School until I finished out my final enlistment and decided it was time to move on.
Yeah, you had a great career. I remember you as a WTI, you being the weapons instructor, you got to handle all the 50 cals and you broke them down and you all the tactics, and wow, it was just so cool to see that, man. And then for you to be able to go to the ground side, the infantry school, and learn more of that stuff and then be able to teach that, I'm pretty sure you're well-rounded on all the military tactics out there. What would you say was your most impactful or memorable moment while you were serving in the Marine Corps?
The impactful piece would probably have to be the tour in Afghanistan. I was surrounded by a great group of people. It was all about the job. It was all about the mission when we were out there. And it's not to say that on other deployments it wasn't, but there was a real feeling of solidarity and community on that deployment. In 2009, it was kind of wild, wild west out there. We were doing things and concepts that people hadn't done before, and we were kind of feeling our way through all of this stuff. And if it were any other group of people, it may not have felt that comfortable, but it was definitely out of my element a little bit. And to have that sense of community amongst your peers, your superiors, and those that lead and work under you, I was really appreciative for that experience. It gave me a lot of insight on what's a good leader, how to lead successfully, even under a situation where we were kind of in where it was unknown every single day, waking up not knowing what was going to happen. Didn't matter. We pulled together and we kind of got things done.
Yeah, that was the special MAGTF, right? So that was
it.
Yeah, that was my first deployment. I know they handpicked a small group of us Marines in the squadron to go out there and set up pretty much all of Afghan for everyone to come. And we were on what was it called when we were all of the coalitions, a NATO base. We were on a NATO
That's
base.
it. Yeah.
We got to experience different types of military branches. And then you nailed it, right? Like we were kind of thrown into the fire, like, hey, this is the unknown territory. You guys are coming here first to set it up. Like, let's see how it goes. And you touched on like having to like up your leadership game, right? I remember me being 19 or 20 years old and I'm having you guys as my leaders and seeing you guys perform. I stepped up to the role and I was performing tasks that I had no idea I was going to be able to perform. So yeah, for me as well, going on the deployment with you, that was definitely a memorable moment that I will always cherish. And I am so happy that it was the group of people that went, because like you said, it wouldn't have been the same if it was anybody else. It just felt like it was the right people at the right moment doing the right thing, and great memories there. So after all your military career, right, and you start getting ready to transition out of the military, what did you think transitioning out was going to look like, and what did it end up looking like in reality?
So what I thought it was going to look like, I had no clue whatsoever. You go to, SEPs and TAPs or whatever they're calling it nowadays, and you get all the instruction and, these are the resources and this is the stuff that you have available to you this year. You go down path A, B, or C. And it makes it sound so, I don't know what's the word. It makes it sound so militarized. It's so well organized, and this is how you do things. And it's not like that at all. That was a huge wake up call for me. Getting ready, knowing in my last year that I wasn't going to re-enlist. It was there was no formula. There was no way of doing those things. And your senior leadership, they haven't transitioned either. They haven't done all of this stuff. They're still in. So they're supposed to be advising you on what you're supposed to be doing, yet they've never done it themselves. Like I said, I know there's resources out there and stuff that you can access, but for the most part, say you're a year out, like I was, you don't have access to really, because you're still doing your job. You're still expected to do what you're supposed to be doing. Your senior leadership is focused on making sure that making sure the helicopters are flying, or making sure the students are still getting trained. So you kind of got to figure that stuff out on your own, unfortunately. We can dive into that a little bit if you want to.
I want to touch on you saying that your leadership is guiding you and they've never done it themselves, right? And this is not a like knock on Marine Corps leadership or any military leadership.
That's
right. They're doing what they know to do, but they don't know what they don't know. And that is exactly why this podcast is out here, so that we can share our experiences with service members who are considering getting out, looking at the unknown, and they're just getting guidance that's maybe not the best guidance for them. I know for me, I knew a year out that I was going to get out of the military as well. And I went to, at the time it was called TAP and TAMPS. I went because they let you go within a year twice. So I took advantage of that. The first time to the second time was like two totally different courses. So it's like basic elements of putting a resume together, but everything else was like, whoa, this has totally changed. So if it changes within a year, what am I to expect when I get out? And it was definitely an eye opener there that no one knows what's going on. Everyone's just kind of getting everyone's putting the check in the box so that maybe some politician or some policymaker says that we're doing a good service to the veterans to get them the stuff they need. But like you said, there's so many more resources out there that are available to veterans even before they transition, that we need to get the word out. And I know that you took advantage of a lot of the benefits and the resources, and you experimented with a lot of them. What would you say was the biggest obstacle to getting those resources in your hands when you were transitioning out of the military?
Yeah. What's that saying? The squeaky wheel gets the grease, or something like that. You have to hound some of these places. You'll send an email and you won't hear anything back, and you'll send another one and somebody will reply to you, but you're not getting quite, the answer that you want to get. You got to hit them up again. You have to ask exactly what you want. And part of the process is figuring out exactly what you want. You don't know what question to ask if you don't even know what you're trying to do in the first place. And I'll tell you, I didn't know what I was trying to do in the first place, and I experimented. And there's nothing wrong with that, trial by fire and figuring things out as you go is a great way to learn. It's not the most efficient way, but like I said, we've never done this before. It's okay to ask the question, to send the email. And if they don't have an answer for you, say, hey, do you know anybody or any other resources or offices that I can contact? Because 9 times out of 10, they'll say, hey, I don't know. But they probably do know who can assist you or at least point you in the right direction. So even if you get a no or if you get the answer you're not quite looking for, keep asking just to be sure that you've exhausted every possible avenue to try to get the answer to your question. And I know maybe I didn't answer your question directly on how or what resources are out there, but when you're trying to get them in the first place, like I said, ask. Be annoying. It doesn't matter. This is your future, basically, that you're trying to build as you transition out.
No, I think you still hit a great point, and being persistent, right? Because somebody does know the answer. It's just you have to go find that person at times because it's not going to be served to you on a silver platter, right? And success does leave clues, and you got out of the military and you're successful now. And so you have all these clues that you can share with other veterans or other people transitioning out of the military. And so we have to be able to acknowledge that it's okay to make mistakes, but keep pushing forward, right? Be persistent. We're all going to make mistakes, but once we make that mistake, we're not starting from ground zero anymore. We're starting from a new level of experience, and we got to use that to further wherever we want to go. And like you said, you probably don't know where you want to go when you're getting out the military because all you know is be here at 0600, go to Chow, wear this uniform, and make sure if you're going on a 72, you fill out this form so we know where you're at. And then you're just kind of released to the wild when you get out and you're just up for your own. So how's life been for you after the military? Like, what are you doing now? I know when us chatting, you've been doing a lot, right? You've been experimenting a lot and kind of finding your own way. Where are you at now and how did you get there?
So now currently I work for Georgia Port Authority and I run the ship to shore cranes for them. It is not it was not easy to get here, I guess you could say. I am doing very well for myself, if I want to toot my own horn, but starting out, it was not like that because once again, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had a good idea, but like you were saying, it's the military, they kind of do, you do what you're supposed to do. There's a set schedule. There's a set way that you do things. And when you get out and you transition, there's no specific set way of doing things. And I thought, well, I got to go to college. If I want to be successful in this world, I have to get my degree. So I enrolled at UNCW while I was still in the military. Started up, did a few semesters there, and life changed as it tends to do. And I could not continue to go to school with the changes that happened in my lifestyle. So I needed, for lack of a better word, I needed money fast. I needed a job, and I needed a decent job because, if you're transitioning out of the military, you do have marketable skills, but if you don't have a specialty, you're not going to make any money. You'll be making $12, $15 an hour. And $12, $15 an hour doesn't go very far at all nowadays. I mean, it didn't even really go that far back in 2016, 2017. But I was using the GEI Bill to go to UNCW, University of North Carolina at Wilmington, and I stopped after my third semester, and right at the end, going into January, I put in for a vocational school, heavy equipment, something of America. It's located out of Conyers, Georgia, but they offer certifications in heavy equipment and crane operations. I did both of those courses down there, 3-week courses each, I believe it was. 3-week for heavy equipment and 3-week for cranes. You can do follow-on or advanced courses. I just needed something quick. Finished up there, and I went back to North Carolina, and I started to put in my resume. I started knocking on doors, going to businesses, saying, hey, I just got these certifications. I transitioned out of the military. I'm a really hard worker. Will you please hire me? And a lot of people liked that, and they were actually responsive to me. And I had one crane company say, hey, you have your CDL? And I said, no, but I'm in the process of getting it because I was also using my benefits to go to Miller Mock College to get my commercial driver's license, get my CDL. He said, hey, leave us your resume, go get your CDL, we'll talk. This whole entire time, I'm still, the resume's going in all different directions. And that's when the port in Wilmington gave me a call and said, hey, would you like to come in for an interview? I already had something, kind of in my back pocket, but I said, I'll come down. I'll sit down and talk to you guys. I went in, I sat down. I liked what I was hearing. I called the other crane company and I said, hey, I got another offer. I really appreciate the opportunity that you've given me, but I'm going to have to go with this. And they said, hey, no harm, no foul. We liked it when you came in. Keeping those, back pocket type of stuff just in case things don't fall through. I went to work for the port in Wilmington. I've never run a ship-to-shore crane. It's a $10 million piece of equipment. And they said, hey, run this. And there were hurdles to overcome. The learning curve was steeper than, it was insane. Looking back on it now, it was crazy, over a 6-month period, they basically qualified me to run this crane. And I got everything down. I got cut loose, so to speak, and they started to let me do my own thing and run the crane and all that stuff. And things were going good. And come to realize that one of the reasons a bunch of those spots opened up is because other people transitioned to another port, Georgia Port Authority. So I started looking into them, and they're a bigger port, just a different beast. They're a lot bigger. They get a lot more throughput. Tons and tons of cargo coming through there. Put in an application. They came back and said, yeah, well, can you come down? Once again, life was throwing stuff at me. I said, hey, now's not a good time to transition. Can I talk to you guys later? And they said, yeah, no big deal. They called me about a year later. They called me. I didn't even go to them. And they said, hey, last time it didn't work out. Are you still interested? I said, yeah, let's do another interview. And now I'm here at Georgia Port Authority.
Wow. I think there's so much to unpack there, right? There's so much to unpack because I want to touch on two things, right? The first one is, I know you told me that at one point you were getting ready to live in your car, right? Because it was just that hard of a time for you. And then it sounds like less than a year later, you're getting job offers thrown at you. And so what does that say to just having that persistence and having to market and sell yourself? Because we do have these tangible skills that people want from the military, but they're just not going to give it to you on a golden platter, right? You still have to go out there and make the effort to do this. And you talk about getting all these qualifications, and you said voc rehab. I'm curious, were you using vocational rehab, or was that still your GI Bill you were using to pay for all those courses and classes and certifications you were taking?
And I may have misspoke, and it's been a while since I've done this, but I'm pretty sure it was through the post 9/11 GI Bill. It still counts as time. So those 3 weeks that I did those courses, there were 6 weeks total. They chipped away at my post 9/11 GI Bill. But you're talking about spending your entire 3 years of your post 9/11 to get a degree, or spend 6 weeks. I still got a year and a half left on my post 9/11. If I wanted to go back to school, I could right now. I could get that degree, which, if I'm doing, what I'm doing right now, I don't see the point in doing that. But it's another option, which is always good.
Yeah, I tell people when you're going to do school, just do it all the way through. Because once you get that first degree and you take a break, it's a lot harder to go back. So I have 10 months left on my GI Bill as well. And it crosses my head to go back, but then I'm pretty good where I'm at now. I don't think a degree is going to elevate me too much more. So I can feel what you mean. What is it? But I still think you can pass that on to dependents someday, right?
Kids,
you still have that available.
Wife. Yep. If I wanted to, I got 2 kids. When it comes down to it, I'm sure tuition isn't going to get any less expensive, so I can always just pass it on to them if I don't end up using it.
Yeah, definitely. So the GI Bill is definitely a great benefit for veterans to use when they get out and start preparing to when they're transitioning. Let's talk a little bit about VA disability. So I know you mentioned you had some surgeries while you were in the Marine Corps. Did you know the process in and out before you got out and had your military disability set up right away? Or did it take you some time to kind of figure it out and get your disability rating?
Right. So going through the process of disability is, you hear people, thumping on the desk, hey, document everything, make sure you go to medical. If you even sneeze, make sure you go to medical. And the reality of it is that you can't just go to medical every single week. You can't, just whenever you do have these things that hit you, just pop off and say, hey, I gotta go. Like people are counting on you, especially in the aviation side of things, like long hours, people with qualifications, especially for you to pull yourself away, somebody's gonna have a problem with that. What I've realized post, obviously after the fact, is you can still document those things and just do them all at once. So say you go in for your annual. Throughout the entire year, you need to keep a spreadsheet or a little note or stickies or something. And every single time you think of something, your knee hurts when you wake up, or when you sleep on your left-hand side, you tend to snore, and maybe you have sleep apnea. Write a laundry list of things. And when you do make it to medical, you say, hey, doc, I need you to recognize that I have all these things going on. If you can do anything for me, I would appreciate it. But if not, can you please just make a note of my medical record? That's all you have to do.
That's all advice.
Go ahead, sir.
No, go for it.
Yeah,
I just think that was smart. I haven't heard that before. Like, just to have it documented yourself, and then during your annual physicals, bringing it up, because the military is fast paced, and you don't want to get that stigma of being the guy who's always at medical. But you still have to document this stuff because you're rated, you deserve it. So what's the smart way to do it? I think documenting it, like things you can put up with, right? Documenting it and then telling them at your annual physical is great. But go ahead, keep sharing what you were sharing.
Yeah, that's it. And that's all you got to do. And he just puts a little blurb in there that says, hey, experiences knee pain after long runs or something like that. Something that you just wouldn't go to the doctor for on your own, for its own individual thing. If there's a note in there, that's a history. And every single time you go in, you take the same list in and say, hey, doc, I'm still having these problems, and I have these problems as well. If I would have done that, it would have saved me so much hassle and time and energy and effort, and just, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm sure yourself included, I'm sure there are things that aren't on your VA disability rating that should be, but since you never documented it, it's like it never happened, unfortunately. You'll probably have to get an attorney to get your rating bumped up, and it's unfortunate we have to do that, but maybe this is a way that people can be a little bit more proactive and save them a little bit of trouble, hopefully.
Yeah, so how long did it take you after getting out the military to finally reach whatever rating you're at now?
Oh, I think I started receiving funds 8 months after I transitioned out. And I was going to school, so I was receiving money through the post 9/11 for housing and all that stuff. And, they reimburse you all that. And then I started to receive my disability. And then I was also doing reserve stuff, which it was as a IMA, individual mobility augmentee. And it was through the School of Infantry, which is where I transitioned out of. I went in whenever they needed me, and I only did that for about 2 years, and it was very quick, done and over with. But I received funds from that as well. So if you're transitioning out and you're worried about money, if you're going to school, you'll get paid as long as you're going full time. If you want to do the reserves, I know some people just want to kind of wipe their hands clean and walk away, but maybe don't knock it until you try it. As an IMA billet, and things could have changed since I transitioned out, but I didn't sign a contract. I did, but I can quit anytime I wanted to. I could say, hey, I'm not coming in, I'm done. And that's what ended up happening, is I did it for a year or so. And then I said, hey, this really isn't working out for me. I got too much going on. And that was it.
Because you finished your IRR time, correct? So you were kind of just volunteering to go work for the reserves? Gotcha.
Yeah, because I did 12 years active, and then everything else was just, I guess, the cherry on top, you could say.
You just loved it that much, huh?
Yeah, I loved it that much, yeah. No, and don't get me wrong, I loved my time in the military, and I would not trade it for anything in the world. But it was time to move on.
Yeah,
that's all.
There's a time when it's like, all right, this has been fun. I'll cherish these moments, but what's life got to offer besides this now?
That's it.
Yeah. I like a key takeaway that I think people can sleep on or sit on is like, you're not going to get your disability right away, right? So it took you 8 months to start seeing a paycheck. And then if you're depending on that and you're depending on your GI Bill housing benefit, whenever you get out, the school season might not be starting for you. So you might get lucky and be able to enroll the first month and start getting paid right away. But having a plan or some savings at least before you get out so that you can give these benefits times to kick in, because when they do kick in, it's great. I mean, I was going to school full time, getting my disability benefits, and selling real estate here and there. I was living a good life. I was just going to the gym 2 hours a day, spending time with my kids, and life wasn't bad at all. I had other issues I had to work with from the Marine Corps, but overall finances weren't an issue. So I appreciate that. I know we were talking, and you said you own 21 acres of land. Is that right?
Right. So this is the other thing that I'm kind of working right now, and this is completely unofficial. This is just a really expensive hobby that sucks all my money that I earn out of the Corps. But when I moved down here, I mean, the housing market was hot. Obviously, you know this. It was 2020. Interest rates were awesome. That was great. But I wanted to establish something. I wanted to contribute Newman's piece to whatever he wanted to do. Grew up on a farm in central Illinois growing up, and farming was the last thing that I ever thought that I would go back to. But I came down here and I started looking into programs offered for veterans, and I came across a program called Heroes to Highs. It's offered through Michigan State University, and they can do it all online. However, beekeeping is very technical, and having the hands-on is very helpful. If you can take the online course, by all means do it, but probably try to go find a mentor. But I completed that course, and I was so into it, and I thought it was such a great concept that I started keeping bees down here. I started out with 7 acres. Another adjacent lot opened up with an additional 14, and I purchased that. And I have several hives going right now. I'm continuing to learn, obviously. I'm pretty novice at this, but the structure and the way that beekeeping is kind of organized is very, I don't want to say militaristic, because there's a bunch of different ways you can do things. But if you regiment and you put in the time, energy, and effort, you will be very successful, even if you're just, put in average effort into it. If you keep things going and on a schedule, it will pay itself forward, so to speak. As far as the emotional feelings and stuff that I get from it, it is very satisfying to do that. I don't want to sound corny or whatnot and say, becoming one with nature and everything, but it is very therapeutic to go out there and do work. I'm trying to turn this 21 acres basically to an economic friendly, sustainable type of farm. We won't be using any, I don't want to say harsh chemicals, because, pesticides, herbicides, they're not bad. It's just you have to use them responsibly. And we're trying to do things in a way that is beneficial to everyone and everything around us, which, isn't easy to do nowadays. And I kind of maybe zigzagged around a little bit on that one, but Heroes to Hives. If you're interested in agriculture and anything else, the Farmer Veterans Coalition, there are so many programs out there for ag that it is. You got to dig for them a little bit, but if you type in agriculture and veteran, guaranteed there are going to be a ton of programs that pop up. You get preferential treatment for USDA, Farm Service Agency, and all the other government programs. I don't say preferential treatment, but you get an extra mark when they're putting in for programs and stuff that maybe you want to apply for. It'll kind of bump you up a little bit in the waiting list in the line if you're a veteran.
Yeah, just that little edge that you're not going to be guaranteed these grants, these programs, but that little edge, and you still have to know your stuff and make all the paperwork correct. That little edge is going to give you the advantage over, regular Joe who's just been in the civilian his whole life. And my novice understanding of bees is that they're going away and we need them more. So, I'm happy you're doing it, because it sounds like this is going to impact a lot of people by having more bees. A lot of people.
Right.
Did you, you said you like the emotional part of it, right? How it kind of eases your mind. I think one of the things that I took away from that little, from that document you sent me was, I looked and acted the way I was supposed to on the outside, but it was always chaos behind the curtains, right? Like I could relate to so much. You're just this picture perfect image, but inside it's like It's a mess, right? What did so the Marine Corps doesn't really prepare you for your mindset once you get out, right? Because you have this
Right.
structure where you're in your comfort zone. What did you learn? And is beehive keeping your outlet permanently to kind of combat these internal issues and struggles you have?
So, beekeeping is definitely one of the things that assists. And for most people, it's not just one thing that's going to help you out. It's going to take a bunch of stuff to try to figure things out. Transitioning out, like you said, this is the first time you're doing it. Your mindset has been one way your entire life because most people go in at 18. From 18 and on, your brain is still a sponge. It's still developing all the way through turning 25 and whatnot, or so the scientists say. And you have been molded to act, speak, do things a certain way. And when that kind of goes away, there's a void of sorts right there. I still work out all the time. You can't see me right now.
You jacked?
I'm in shape. I'm not jacked, but I'm in shape because I still go to the gym because it helps me. It helps my mindset. It helps me to relax. I, putt around the farm. I tend to the garden. We got chickens. We got ducks. We got the bees back there. I'm trying to develop pollinator habitat and all that stuff, building and creating things and making things that kind of feed into each other is very relaxing. Now, that's all very therapeutic. There is definitely a more structured approach. Therapy, journaling, just having somebody to talk to about some of these things, because you're right. The Marine Corps is very good at shaping, molding, and getting you to perform, even if everything in here isn't the greatest. And when you transition out, you don't have that driver of being, the Marine Corps saying, hey, you're still going to do this, you're still going to perform, you're still going to do all these things. And when that's not there anymore, you're kind of like, well, if I don't have to do that anymore, I'm going to have to start thinking about all this stuff that's going on up here. Anxiety is super common. I mean, I didn't even realize that it was anxiety, which is so messed up to me that I didn't realize the way that I was feeling was anxiety. And I've had it all throughout the military. Going to run a PFT in the morning, the night before, just, or what if I don't do well? I'm a 280, plus PFTer, but I'm still worrying the night before about all this craziness. And there's no reason for that. There is a reason for that, but you have to find out what that reason is. You're going to have to do a lot of soul searching. You're going to have to do a lot of time with yourself, which, like I said, the military kind of pushes that, piece to the side, and you don't have to deal with it as much because the military is kind of like the Band-Aid, so to speak. They rip the Band-Aid off, the wound's exposed, you're out in the civilian world. You have to find something else. Find your beekeeping.
They
talk
don't
to
they
the
don't give us the
therapist.
coping mechanisms to be able to deal with regular life, And you're saying like we go in at such a young age. I know for men, like their frontal cortex or the frontal lobe doesn't fully develop till they're 25. And I mean, by the time I was 25, I had already been to combat twice, and I'd been in this environment where it's like go go go, perform perform perform, and you're speaking your story, and I can relate 100%. And I'm glad that you're saying that it's not just these activities like journaling or beehiving or the gym. Like those are crucial to maintaining your mental health, but also taking the actionable steps and seeking therapy and putting in that work where someone's going to kind of guide you the right way so that these other things you're doing, like the journaling and the gym, they actually all make sense and all tie together. Because the military, like you said, it's a Band-Aid, right? And you're all hurt and you're all together, so it's all good, right? But then once that gets ripped off and you don't have that system and that support around you where everyone's kind of enabling you to be the same way, you really got to take a hard look at yourself and figure out, am I going to stay this way or am I going to fix it? And so I'm really happy that you did the work. It's not easy. I hope you can you have attested to that. It's tough
I'm
work.
still doing the work. Yeah, I'm still doing the work. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to stop more than likely, and that's just something maybe you have to come to term with, is that you're always just going to have to. It's just like going to the gym or eating healthy or anything else. Mental health is just like physical health. If you don't take care of your heart, if you don't take care of your brain, if you don't take care of your emotions, bad stuff's gonna happen more than likely. So
Yeah, I mean, the first kind of thing, my first form of acceptance for me was what you said. You have to accept that it's going to be here. Like,
mhm.
I call it fighting my demons. Like, he ain't going anywhere. He's sticking around. He wants to win too, but I got to make myself strong enough with the tools that I have so that I keep him down and away, and that I can be, the man that I want to be without all this anxiety, because I stress too, right? Like, how is this going to go tomorrow? Just like you're talking about the PFT, like, what about XYZ? And that's not a healthy way to think about it. And I think we thought about it that way because we had very important roles in the military, right? Especially when we're in a deployment to Afghanistan and lives are on the line. Like, did I miss something? Did I forget something? Like, you have to make sure all your T's are crossed and all your I's are dotted. And it's a good skill to have. Employers want it, right? Because you're very thorough with your work. But when you go home and sit alone, are you okay being alone, right? You have to do the work to be okay being alone. And that's what I think a lot of veterans weren't prepared for, and probably having the hardest time right now because they got their support system taken away. They got their barracks buddies taken away. They got that camaraderie taken away. And when you're just tossed right back out into society without any coping mechanisms, it can be a rough time. And that's why we see these stories like, 22 a day and veterans are taking their lives. I, I, they don't know how to cope with it. And we have to let them know that there's resources out there for them, like therapy through the VA. It might take a while to get it, but they'll get it to you eventually. And you got to stick with it and put in the effort to actually apply what they're teaching you, and not just be a knucklehead like, no, this is just the way I am. This is how it's going to be. I'm a tough guy. No, you're not a tough guy, or else you wouldn't be here right now, because you don't need to be tough. You don't need to be tough all the time. That's a great thing. I'm really happy you shared that part. It really makes a lot. So what's next for you, right? What are your goals? What's your future look like? I know you're talking about you want to have like a retreat for veterans, right?
Yeah, so if I can make this farm stuff work, I would really like to give back in some way, shape, or form. Being a mentor and being a senior leader in the military, I would pass on my experience. If anybody had problems, hey, come to me. Let's have a conversation, or let me, point you in the right direction of a resource that can help you out. I would like to be that resource. I would like to be able to take what I create out here and the things that I do, and it may not happen immediately, but this might be when I retire. But I'd like to have a retreat where veterans can come and just take a couple of days to relax, show them around the farm. They can do beekeeping, they can do ducks, they can do any of these things out here that we kind of do, and just maybe not think about stuff so severely for a while, because there is tons of stuff going on, and every once in a while it's just nice to tune out for a little bit, relax, maybe put your mind on something else, because that is a form of therapy, is to take yourself somewhere else, go to your Zen mode, reflect, and think about other things for a while in a very safe and comforting place. And if I can do that, that would be great. Now that's long term. We'll see. Who knows? Like I said,
You're doing
maybe
that.
it won't be.
You're doing that right now by sharing your story. Like,
Right.
you're being
too.
a resource. So like, you're doing it when you can, and that's another thing. Like, do what you can when you can. Don't try to be everything for everybody, because you can't. You have to take care of yourself first. You have to hit your goals first. You have to make sure that you're set up first, because if your cup's not full, you can't fill anybody else's cup up. And that's something that I've learned, and I've done some deep soul searching as well, to be able to be here and share and get this out to veterans so that they can be on the same path too. Because that's the happiness and the enlightenment that comes with it. I want that for everybody. And so like, you're being a resource right now. So don't forget that. I appreciate it, by the way.
No
What
problem. I do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So what advice would you give to current active duty members who are getting ready to transition out, or thinking about transitioning out? What advice would you give to them?
So this just got me thinking right now. It would be phenomenal if they could have a panel come in of people who have made the transition and share their stories at something like Steps and Taps, or Tap and Tamp, or whatever they're calling it nowadays. If you know anybody that has transitioned, ask them, because they've made the mistakes. Yeah. Go and talk to somebody, because I guarantee that you served with somebody who made the transition. And even if they aren't successful, even if they aren't doing the things, that they should be doing, they can definitely probably tell you what not to do. I can tell you what not to do because, like I said, I ran through the gambit trying to figure things out. It wasn't the most efficient way, but I definitely learned a lot, and I can definitely probably pass that. You could pass it on. Anybody who's transitioned out, if you know anybody that's transitioning out, talk to them. And if you're transitioning out, talk to those people as well. Reach out, resources. Google is your friend. These things aren't just going to fall into your lap. You have to sometimes really dig to find them. So don't be afraid to look stuff up. Don't be afraid to talk to your county office, your state office. When you try to do the GI Bill thing, go and talk to the university and tell them, hey, I'm a transitioning veteran. What can you all do to help me? Like I said, squeaky wheel, all that good stuff. Ask, 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 ask. Don't be afraid to look like an idiot. This is the first time you've done this. You've never done it before. Just throw yourself out there. Ask a friend.
Yeah, great advice. I love that. Getting a panel on whatever they're calling their transition program nowadays, like that's genius, right? Like, and I feel like that could be an easy thing for me or us to reach out to and make that happen. So great point there.
Yeah.
Great point. What tips or advice or words of encouragement would you give to veterans who've already made the transition and maybe don't have their feet underneath them and are still trying to figure out how to figure out this whole civilian life thing?
And like I said, it's the same thing. It's a process, and you may not get it right the first time. I think there was a lot of pressure. We talked about the anxiety of it all to get it right the first time. Like, you can't waste any time transitioning. I mean, you already wasted 4, 8, 12 years in the Marine Corps. You need to get out and grab the civilian life and take advantage of it really quick. You don't have to do that. You can take your time. And if you don't get it right the first time, no big deal. Try something else. Use the resources available to you. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah, great advice. So before we start wrapping it up, is there anything else you want to share with these veterans or people who are active duty here listening right now?
I don't know. I feel unqualified to talk about these things for whatever reason. And I don't know what it is. And you and I had this conversation because, sometimes we don't think of ourselves how other people see us. And I think a lot of people kind of have that issue. They don't think that they're good enough for this, or they don't think that they do these things. And I can honestly tell you, you are doing these things. You are this person to other people, even if you think you're not. Give yourself a little bit more credit. We're so down on ourselves. We're very focused on the negative. We don't focus so much on the positive. And pulling up those positive things, even if you can't see them, I guarantee somebody else can. So continue to be that positive influence for somebody, even if it's something as tiny as, holding the door open for an old lady. And like I said, just don't get so wrapped up with the bad and bad stuff going on right now. Focus on the positive. Focus on what you can do positive, and just one day at a time, keep on doing it.
Yeah, I remember when we had our phone call, I told you how much I looked up to you, and you couldn't believe it. And I was like, but why not? Like, you were this heavy hitter. You were the embodiment of a Marine Corps sergeant. Like, why wouldn't people look up to you? And so it was interesting to know that you had that perspective as well, because I have it too. I think we all have a little bit of imposter syndrome.
That's it.
But we need to give ourselves more credit and be more caring to ourselves, that especially as veterans, like, we've gone through something that a lot of people haven't gone through. So we have something to share.
That's right.
Hey, Newman, well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to make this happen and taking time to share your experience with other veterans. I really appreciate you being here with us today. And I feel like we could have chatted a lot more, and we probably still can after this is over. Yeah. I want to thank everybody who stayed this far to watch the podcast or listen to it. I really appreciate you. If you have any feedback or any comments you want to leave, go ahead and drop them below. I'll do my absolute best to get to you. And I'm your host, Ricardo. Thank you for watching Military to Mainstream.